So I am here with Cassie Catania Sue, who is did I get that right?
Yes.
Who is the managing director at CBRE here in Las Vegas. Cassie, thank you for making the time on Friday to spend an hour with me talking about commercial real estate here in town.
Of course. Happy to. Thank you for asking me and having me.
So the whole reason I wanted to have a managing director on this podcast was I get a lot of brokers and developers, but a managing director of a brokerage has a whole different perspective, in my opinion, and we'll find out during this podcast about the brokerage community, because I've been a broker in town for almost 20 years now, and I know a lot of the agents, but when you look at a managing director of a company of your size with CBRE, you guys have evaluations, so appraisals, property management, capital markets, then the brokerage side,
Project
obviously.
management, investment banking. Yeah.
So investment banking and project management.
Yep.
And you're overseeing all those departments here in Las Vegas.
For the most part, some dotted lines, but yes, I mean, anything kind of related to overall strategy for Southern Nevada.
So I love it. That's why I wanted to have this. No, well, you're going to be a great resource, and we're going to get into your background and roles a little bit. But the reason I wanted to have you on here was I keep saying we need more good people in this industry, or even people who are in this industry that might not be in the right spot. And brokerages aren't all the same. It's maybe not that one's better than the other, and I'll say NAI is the best where I'm at, and you'll say CBRE's where you're at. But people coming out of college might not know questions to ask, and I can only give a perspective of an agent. And then you're on the director side, you can give more of a perspective of maybe you go to college recruiting, and also agents that have been in the business a long time. You'd be surprised how many conversations I have with seasoned agents who have been at a brokerage for a long time, and they don't know what's out there. And my advice always is go talk to everybody. But so your roles are, again, you're managing all those departments. So can you tell me, actually, let's go back a little bit into your broker. You were an agent for a while you were at Sun Commercial for a long time, or where were you before that?
I've been a couple of places.
Okay, yeah, let's hear your journey a little bit.
I started basically in commercial real estate in 2007 when I graduated college from UNLV.
Go Rebels.
Yes, go Rebels. Degree in real estate, really mostly predominantly learning about commercial real estate, appraisal, and finance. So I think the only other degree that probably would have been more helpful, I think, in my career would have been a psychology degree. But
we'll get into that. Conflict resolution.
So aside from that, I'm very grateful for my real estate degree, and I'm still heavily involved in the UNLV Lead Center for Real Estate, as I've been since I graduated in 2007, because I really believe in the program that we're building. And, no disrespect to other majors, I think everybody goes where their passion lies, but I knew I wanted to do real estate, and I like that at least real estate seems to be still like a minority major, so I always tell the students at UNLV, like, at least try to get a minor in real estate, because when you are submitting applications and there's 500 people or applicants with a finance major, you could have a real estate major or a finance major with a minor in real estate. So I just feel like it is something different. If anything, then I feel like I can get flagged in a resume pool, or people ask the question about it. So I'm really glad that I have a real estate major, because I feel like they're not as common as some of the other majors. But yeah, so I started in 2007 and was, basically my entire career I have vacillated between being a broker and, being a managing director or managing broker. So I've vacillated, I think, between being in the deals and then helping get deals. So a little different. A lot of people ask me too, like, which one do you like better? And I don't know if I could still even tell you that today. There's things I like about both. But why I like the managing director role is because I still feel like I'm in the deal to an extent with my teams. So I think it fills kind of that like transactional junkie part of me, where I get the thrill of the pitch and winning business, but with the team. And for me, like, being on the sideline or behind the scenes to help somebody win business fills my cup more than me winning the business myself. So, so basically since 2007, I have been in the business in one way or another. Like I said, between doing deals or managing teams. I also did do about 5 years in trade shows, though, also, which was really interesting.
Here in Las Vegas?
Yeah, at the World Market Center.
Okay. Those buildings are crazy.
Yes, very crazy. So I learned a lot about manufacturing and that whole side of the world. But basically, again, doing the same job there as I would do anywhere else, is building relationships and getting deals done. So, I mean, I think my career is basically that. It's just whatever my title might change, but I've built, I think, a really great, nearly 30-year career, or 20-something year career now, in making relationships and finding ways to help people. And that's what I love.
Real estate is 100% a relationship-based business. It's just interesting how like your clients become your friends and agents become your friends, even at other brokerages. But so that's well said. So you were, I just want to go over your kind of path real quick, because again, some people might listen to this and they're new to the business and they maybe want to be a managing director at some point. So you were at Cushman and Wakefield for a little bit.
It was Commerce, but
Cushman.
it was an affiliate of Cushman. It was Commerce Real Estate Solutions, though, out of Salt Lake City.
Okay.
They had acquired IPG, Industrial Properties Group, which was Dean
Wilmore's
Wilmore's company. Exactly.
I was around then.
So, yes, exactly. So Commerce had acquired IPG. So I was basically a result of the acquisition.
And then you were at Sun Commercial for a while?
And then from there, I was at Grubb & Ellis for a hot second, when it was Grubb, and worked on a medical office leasing team there, and really worked mostly on a medical REIT portfolio focused on renewals. I come from a large physician-heavy family, so I tend to do well working with physicians.
Well, managing director, MD,
So, yeah. And then that is when I had got the call about the position at the World Market Center to launch an entirely new category within the trade show there. And at the time, it was 2011, so there wasn't a whole lot going on in commercial real estate. We were doing a ton of BPOs for very little money. And, at the time, we just didn't really see what was on the horizon. And so I took that position, as a way to learn. I do love learning and pushing myself out of my comfort zone. So it was something entirely different. And in a time where there was a lot of uncertainty. And so I did that for 5 years. I launched basically gift and home accessories in a furniture trade show. And then I think I was really just burnt out from traveling. I was traveling over 100 days a year, like landing, checking in for your next flight the next day. But I made incredible friends there too, great relationships. And like I said, I did travel the world, and I met incredible people and learned about a whole nother side of the world that I had no knowledge about, manufacturing and buying and selling in the furniture world, or, how stores buy product basically 2 to 3 seasons ahead of time. So just really interesting to learn. But I think I just kind of got burnt out and then wanted to come back into commercial real estate. And that's when I went to Sun. And when I went there at first, I went to do kind of office leasing because it was the time really a heavily focused investment sales firm.
Okay.
And so worked on the leasing, and then I wasn't there that long really before I took over kind of the operations and management piece.
So you transitioned then to the managing director role over there. Were you a
probably
participating?
like 8 months in. No.
Broker there. So you were 100% on the management side. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to get into the different kind of directors here in a second.
So I recruited a team over. It was like August, I think. So I think I went over there like December. And then in August, I basically transitioned into the management role, and I recruited a team over and to take over basically the leasing portfolio that I had, and then let that go and got back into management. And I was like 7 or 8 months pregnant at the time too with my daughter. So I did that. But yeah, I have never been in a player coach role. I have always done the non-player coach role. So I think there's benefits to both, I guess. I personally feel like it would be hard to do. And when I'm in something, I'm like all in. So for me to just be running my own deals while you're also trying to help other people do their deals, I just feel like it's hard. At CB, I mean, the model isn't that way, but I'm saying at the smaller boutique firms I had been at, maybe that could have been an option, but it was never one I explored.
Well, it's like the different brokerages we were talking about before we got on here. It's like there's the corporate shops as yours is. I think you guys have you said 110,000 people globally.
Yes, so over 100 locations. Yeah, we're in
monster
many
company.
countries. Yes.
But like our office, I'm at NAI, and we're a franchise, and Todd Manning's our managing director, and he does some deals. He focuses. I'd probably say 90% on management and 10% on he does some deals here or there. And then Chaim at MDL, he's got a team and they do quite a few deals and he manages that office. So there's like, I was like to say there's no, I don't know, maybe not better model. It's just what's right for you.
Yep, exactly.
So that's kind of what I wanted to get into. So people listening to this, they get those jobs, and when they're out looking at maybe a brokerage or they're thinking of making a switch, to understand that these are good questions to ask. Like, are you a participating broker?
Exactly.
Because I know some offices have really good brokers, and they get really big, and that participating broker has no time to manage. And like, I bounce ideas off my team and other people in the office, and I'll walk into Todd's office quite often to pick their brain. And so I wanted to get into kind of your role a little bit about how your maybe your day goes, or how you divide your time managing all those different kind of departments, and I mean maybe even egos. I mean, you guys have a couple really good brokers, a couple heavy hitters over at CB. I'm always curious.
I like to
about
say all good brokers.
All good brokers. Well, no, I'm kidding. I think we've got a really good brokerage community in Las Vegas.
We have great brokers at every shop, but I'm very proud of the team we have. But the main piece of my day is definitely around the 40 brokers that I have in the office currently, and supporting them however I can. And then I also have a lot of community involvement also. So
you're involved in a lot of things. I have a list here, but like, what are 3 things you do outside? I know you're involved with UNLV and NAOP as well. Is there anything else that eats up your time?
Yeah. So locally, I'm currently the NAOP Southern Nevada chapter president. I'm the Crew Las Vegas past president. I'm the UNLV Lead Council of Advisors vice chair. And then I'm also a national NAOP governor and serve on a couple of task force and committee with the national NAOP. I'm also a board member of the CBRE Women's Network Group. It's an employee business resource group, and on a couple of committees for that, and several. Trying to even think what else, but there's others.
You just spun 2 questions there. No, I appreciate you sharing that. There's 2 things I wanted to actually ask you about. One is community, community involvement. How do you think that's helped your career?
Oh, very much. And I know when we kind of talked about this, you were saying, how do you help others get in the business? So that's, I think, the UNLV piece for me. But that is my, I would say, if no matter where you are in your career, to me, and to your point about like what a great community we have, building relationships, like the community and industry work or dedication that I do is predicated around building relationships outside of when the deal happens, right? Sure. Or when there are issues. Like, I don't want the first phone call I make to somebody to be around, hey, we have a problem, or hey, there's something has come up. It's like, okay, I know this person from 10 years in an organization, or, and so because a lot of any issues, whether it's brokerage or anything I've come across, it's like it's usually just 2 people's perception of an issue. But if their intentions are pure, it's like, okay, let's find out what is really the root of the problem and fix it. And so when I know people outside of the first time I'm hearing about it is through, the lens of somebody else, it's like, well, hold on, I don't think that's their intention. I've known this person for 10 years. Let's call them and see what they meant by that. So I think for me, the industry or community work that I do is huge because, one is like, I feel like I have a great tribe of people. 2, people know me so that when I make a call, they are, kind of a little bit disarmed for any reason. And then 3, like I said, just knowing that, God forbid, if you needed a job tomorrow, like, hey, I could call 100 people and be like, hey, I need something. And I feel like they would know that I'm, have a lot of integrity and I'm a woman of my word, and that they would vouch for me in any situation. So to me, I think knowing people outside of just where you work, no matter where you work, is very important. And, even like for you as a broker, like you're going to do deals with developers, wouldn't you want to know them maybe outside of just the deal?
100%.
And so that's where my work, with NAOP or going to CCIM lunch or SIOR lunch, like to me, all of that is part of the job to an extent. It's like, it's not who it's who knows you sometimes, and so that's where I feel like my work outside of my, day-to-day role that's part of it. Who knows me and who can vouch for me and who would take my call.
That's an amazing point that you made. And I've said this every podcast, but your network is your net worth. And that doesn't necessarily just have to be like money. I know that is literally what I'm saying, but when you have a big network, whether it's, I don't care, it might be your kids are involved in dance or a hiking group you're part of.
Yeah.
But you make a good point where maybe if there's an issue with one of your brokers, or I don't want to say one of your brokers, but there's maybe between another agent at another brokerage, and you call, like if you were to call me, I'd be like, oh, Cassie's calling me. Like, I've seen you at some other events. I wouldn't immediately be like, oh, the managing director of CB is calling me. This is either going to be really good or really bad. That's a great point. The second thing I wanted to ask you was, I've been licensed in Nevada since 2005. I was a freshman in college, and it was kind of a lot more of a good old boys club. And now there's a lot more women in the industry, which I think is great. Like my team, I've got the two agents on my team are both women. How have you had any, like, in the beginning of your career, maybe something that you saw where you're like, wow, like being a woman was maybe you weren't part of the old boys club, and now you go to, like you said, your crew and NAOP, where you're like, wow, there's like more of a, it's more of a 50-50 maybe not quite there yet, but where you've just seen a progression, or like things maybe you've done that how about this as a question? Advice you could give a young woman who's looking to get into the business and might go to one of these events and see it's maybe they think it's male dominant, and I don't think it is as much anymore, but like you could say maybe don't be so scared to go check it out, or just some advice for a young woman getting into the business or being a woman in the industry.
Yeah, I've been changed. Very lucky. I mean, to your point, it's definitely evolved in my nearly 20-year career. I guess me, and I know this isn't true for everybody, like I've just never been scared of that. Like if there was all men in a room, like, okay, so I'm the only woman, but it never changed my self-view or my perception of a situation. And like if there wasn't a seat at the table, I would make one. Like that's just, I think I was born that way though. My mom would say I was very precocious 4-year-old. But to me, it's like, I've never looked at that as like they're my peers, no matter what and who they are. But I mean, right, that's not everyone's story. I work with a lot of women who have had some things happen, throughout the course of their career that they would have a different opinion about that. But I guess I've just been very lucky that I've always looked at it like, regardless of who's in the room, I'm going to earn the respect of everyone in the room, and then in return, ask for mutual respect. And so to me, I would do that again, no matter who was in the room. And I think, I've never been the smartest or the fastest in any room, and I don't want to be, right? I want to surround myself with people who are faster, stronger, better than me. But I've always said I would outwork anyone else. And so I feel like I've been able to really garner respect in the industry pretty quickly by just showing up when I say I'm going to, or doing something I say I'm going to do. So my strategy was always like, I'll outwork the competition, and that has worked well for me. But it's funny you say that, because very recently though, I did have a situation that I've like told people throughout my career, like, oh, nothing like that has ever happened to me. But then I actually realized it kind of did, but I just didn't even think about it at the time. So when I was 2007, and I was graduating UNLV, and I signed up for the mentorship program with Dana Berggren. So I'm sure you know Dana.
Yeah.
And so, whenever anybody says,
shout out to Dana.
Shout out to Dana Berggren, B. It's whenever anybody says like, oh, how are you here? I'm like, blame Dana. It is all Dana Berggren. So I had signed up for a mentorship with her through UNLV, my senior semester of college there. And I had told her how I was trying to get into commercial. I'd been licensed since 2005 also, March, but I was doing residential, and I wanted to get into commercial. And I told her I had applied for a position as an investment analyst with a team, and I didn't know who the team was. I wasn't in the commercial real estate industry yet. And she said, oh, I know that person. Like, I'll make a call for you. No problem. I'm like, okay. And so I was sitting in her office, and she put on speakerphone, and she called this person and said, hey, I have this student here. She's amazing. She's so bright. She's got a bright future ahead of her. I think you should consider her. And the person on the other end of the line said, oh, yeah, I saw that resume. Like, I would never hire a young female in this business. Like, she'll be totally steamrolled. And she was on speaker, and she starts fumbling to like grab the receiver as quick as she can and take it off speaker. And she's like, I think you're really wrong about her. I think you should at least give her a chance. She's going to be something. Yeah, I really think, you're wrong about that. And I don't know what had happened after that point. And then she hung up the phone, and she looked at me and she said, it's okay. Screw him. We're going to move on to the next, and you're going to be fine. And that day she walked me around IPG, And ultimately, Art Farminelli and Danielle Steffen hired me to be their junior associate. So that was literally how I kind of got my start into the business. And like I said, I never really thought about that for a long time until 16 years later. It was November of last year. I got an email from this person asking me for a job. And so I remember, like, the first instinct I had was to call Dana and tell her, because it'd been 16 years. We're still very close today. And I said, you're never going to believe who just emailed me asking me for a job, and had attached their resume. And it was a lot of funny
Karma.
words on the other side of the phone.
No, what goes around comes around. It in one way or another. So that was almost 20 years later.
Yeah, 16 years later, almost
16.
to the month. And, I sat on it for a couple of days, the email, and I thought, how do I respond to this? I'm still professional, obviously, but I thought, man, like you said, like, and I'm not like a vengeful person or feel like karma. Like, I do genuinely think that people mean well. I just think sometimes people make bad decisions, but I don't think people are bad people usually. So I don't wish ill on anyone, but it was just one of those like full circle moments. And it was like a Thursday or Friday. I remember I sat on it all week, and I just remember thinking, like, man, I guess I did have a story like that, but I never really realized until the email kind of came back. And so I even talked to my husband about it. And I said, how should I respond? And he said, just take the high road. I'm like, okay. 3 days and a little sleep later, I'm like, all right, I'm going to take the high road, but I'm going to put a Cassie twist on it. And so I responded very respectfully saying, thank you for reaching out, Mr. So-and-so. At the moment, we're not actively looking for that type of broker, but I'm happy to keep, your resume on file for the future. But just so you know, below is the email that you sent me in October of 2007, where you told me that this industry was no place for me and that I didn't have enough experience for you to consider hiring me. Hope all is well.
Learning experience. I've foot in the mouth moment. That's interesting. That's crazy that has happened. But that's a great story. That maybe one incident like that isn't the whole industry.
Exactly. Yeah.
And where you're at now, like you're the managing director of I think CB is the biggest brokerage in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I know you're very involved with UNLV, but do you guys recruit new brokers, and then obviously you guys try to recruit seasoned ones? And I always joke, I'll get a call every once in a while from a broker from another brokerage and be like, hey, do you want to go grab lunch? How are things going on over there? And I always find it funny. I'm like, these brokers have to keep these like meetings or secret, because like I don't want, like, if I go meet with another broker, like we're doing this podcast, but if I were to go have coffee with you, like I don't need the rumor going around that I'm looking at different brokerages. And I'm not saying that's what happened. But like, how does recruiting work, not only for new agents, but even seasoned agents? I'm kind of curious how you do that, because I know like how our office does it, which is what I described. But you're really involved in UNLV.
Yeah, I mean, for UNLV, definitely, again, passion project for me is building the pipeline and the succession plan for our industry. I think we have an incredible group of people, an incredible industry, but we need to consistently and constantly fill that pipeline with new talent, right? And, something a lot of brokers have told me like throughout my career, and like totally innocently, like, oh, I'll let you know when I'm getting ready to retire and we'll bring in somebody else. I'm like, hey, that's too late.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait for you to be ready. It's going to take somebody several years to get their feet grounded and learn the business. So that's too late. So I'm constantly working with any teams where I work, on succession planning, and we should have teams that have a vast makeup of new to business and seasoned professionals. It shouldn't be a group of all seasoned professionals. We're missing something. And equally so, like, I love helping people learn the business and get into the business, but they really can't be on their own in the business, right? They should join a team. So the pipeline from UNLV is always, the goal is to fill in basically gaps or future potential on existing teams. But I really feel like, can anyone make it? Of course. Like I said, I've done a lot of things, but always on a team. But if there is somebody super motivated that's young, yes, they can survive and they can learn the business if they're willing to put in the work. But the best course, I think, is for them to join a team.
What are some tips you would give, a newer agent or someone looking to get into the business? What to do? You mentioned something really interesting. You're always recruiting and trying to fill up the pipeline for the industry. So that sounds like you're trying to find your team's good junior agents to play matchmaker with that. But yeah, what are what's a piece of advice you could give somebody who's looking to get into this business? Maybe they're a residential agent wanting to get into commercial or whatever. They're a VIP host or a freshman or a senior in college.
And I've hired all of those. By the way, I've hospitality, especially during COVID, right? I've done a lot with residential brokers that want to get into commercial. I would say that's probably been the hardest for me because the pipeline and turnover in residential is much quicker than in commercial. And I have found that the residential agents or brokers, they sometimes get frustrated with how long deals take for us. And then I've, hired new to business. I've hired medical device sales reps or medical software sales reps too into the business. So, what I would say, and I tell this a lot, to UNLV students with all the work that I do with them is, one is you need to find a mentor, and your mentor is not necessarily the team or person that you work with. You need to find somebody who's willing to spend the time to help you and coach you and guide you. And then secondly is, find a team whose values align with yours. That's, I think, the one leadership lesson for me in my career has been, I am a highly rigid person and highly motivated and, but my expectations on myself are not the expectations I have on my team unless it's what they want to, right? But you have to learn and respect how people view the world, and not everybody. And please, we know that there would, we don't need a room full of Cassies, so it's a good thing, right? And so you have to learn how people are. So there's certain teams or when I meet students, I'm like, okay, well, based on what you're telling me you want, that, XYZ team may not be the best team for you, but you should go talk to this team. And a lot of times it may not necessarily be a team for me, like Mike Tabik has called me recently at Newmark, hey, I need somebody. Who do you know at UNLV that's coming out? And I'm like, oh, I think this would be a good fit. So a lot of times it's asking anybody new to the business or that wants to get into commercial real estate, where are your values? What are you looking for? And then finding a complementary team to support them, I think is important. Asking what resources and training they have available. And look, I'll tell you, and I've worked, at the different brokerages that I've worked at. I've worked with a lot of brokers in our market and a lot of top tier teams in different disciplines. And some of the best brokers are not the best teachers. And some of the best teachers are not the best brokers, right? And sometimes the best broker is the best teacher. But I'm saying brokers have different skill sets. And so I think it's important for a team to understand the dynamic of their own team before bringing on somebody else, and then looking for, how does that puzzle piece fit within our team? And it's not a one size fits all approach. I don't think management is. I don't think brokerage is. I don't think getting into the business is. And so to me, I think it's a very individualized approach, but I would tell somebody get clear with who you are, what you are, and your style of learning. Some people, I was kind of thrown to the wolves and learned a lot quickly, and that is great. But not everybody is built that way. So if you are somebody that wants something more structured, where you have a team that's going to sit down and review LOIs with you or lease language, then you need to make sure that you find a team where they have that in place. Does that make sense? I think that's the biggest key to success.
You've been in Las Vegas for a long time, and I've been here since 2004. 20 years. It kind of hit me. But
this year.
What are you thinking about Las Vegas in the future? I mean, we've had the sports teams come here. I mean, we've got professional volleyball and football, and obviously the Raiders, and they're talking about a baseball team. Well, the A's are coming when the stadium is done, but maybe basketball. But those things are kind of in the future. But what do you see happening with Vegas's growth, or maybe some exciting projects that you have on your radar? What gets you excited about Las Vegas in the next couple of years?
I mean, I think I'm really glad we're in Las Vegas, I think, compared to a lot of other places, just because we have a lot going on and a lot of potential. I think we are a vibrant city with a lot of potential, but we're still growing up. But that's great for us, right?
Especially
we want to be a part of all of that growth and development and excitement. I think, like you said, we went from being the entertainment capital of the world to the sports capital of the world. And, having grown up here myself, I think we moved here in 91. I was 6. So, I've seen a lot. And now have, 2 kids and my husband who are diehard Golden Knights fans, and growing up, we had no sports, you
Those
know,
games
so
are
it's,
so much
I know,
fun.
so fun. I know, but it's really, it like spoils you for any other hockey game that's just hockey. I mean, my kids have loved hockey, but we've learned when we've taken them to other sporting events that I don't know if they actually do love hockey. I think they love that it's basically like a show to go to the Golden Knights games, because we're like, oh, they love sports, and you take them to other sporting events, and they're like, this is a snooze fest, and you're like, well, hold on, so maybe you don't love the hockey as much as you love all of the. I mean, it's like a spectacle, our games. So
it's a Circus
we're
Soleil show
spoiled.
and a hockey game.
Exactly. I mean, it's like we're spoiled that our hockey games are above board and basically a full production. So yes, I mean, having that ability though to have the variety to attend a concert, you know, one day and a sporting event the next. But I'm just saying it's really cool that, you know, now having kids like to be able to have sports that I didn't have growing up to attend. But I think again, like the fact that we have so much opportunity still to come, I think is super exciting. We'll see what happens, you know, the talk about Sony and Howard Hughes and Warner Brothers. So I think that could be a whole nother opportunity for us that'll hopefully bring more jobs, high paying jobs, and bring us some diversification to our economy. Brightline, obviously a lot of talk now. See what that does, but hopefully that'll spur some more development and around where they where the station will be for that. And so I think just in general, again, like cranes up is a good sign for us.
100%.
Tourism is a good sign for us, a place where people want to be. Our affordability obviously has diminished a little bit for vacations and or for housing and for our community. But I think, you know, barring any huge economic events or black swan events, I think we're poised for continuous success and growth. And again, like in a career that is predicated on deals, I think there's a lot of opportunity still in our community for us. And I think it's exciting. Like I said, like there's other places that have a lot more to offer than us and a lot more diversity, and they're probably more mature, but like we get to be a part of the story, not just show up when the story is done. And so I think compared to a lot of other places, we have it really good.
Well, another thing about, I mean, Las Vegas is the world's kind of like gotten smaller. And the reason I say this is like you can hop around from our airport, like literally anywhere. And you mentioned Brightline. Like I don't even know, there's probably 10 flights with just Southwest Airlines direct to San Diego and Orange County. I'm also licensed in California.
Oh, you are?
So I bounce between Orange County, John Wayne, in Las Vegas quite a bit. And it's crazy. I can like book a flight at 11 p.m. or 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And then with Brightline happening. So I think we're going to see more and more where people kind of like live maybe two places, or they might be a resident here, but they're in California a lot more just because it's easier to get places. That new international terminal, it's not so new anymore. I think it's like 10 years old.
Which is
direct
crazy.
flights,
Like it doesn't feel at all, but I think
I flew in on the first day that was open. I flew in from Germany, and it was empty and no stores open. It was really cool. But I mean, they have direct flights now to, I think, Korea, I mean, Norway and London. A New Airlines is doing another direct flight to London 3 days a week. So that's, Vegas, I think we're really in a unique position for like the growth.
Exactly.
So how do you like officing in the Uncommons? I know you guys were at Howard Hughes for a long time, and the Uncommons is one of the coolest developments in town. I'm happy to see like these developments diversifying and being more modern. They've got apartments and retail in your guys' office there. How do you like that?
I actually wasn't at Howard Hughes that long, because when I started at CB, it was like basically when we signed our lease at Uncommon. So we weren't there that long while I was at CB. We basically kind of started construction almost right away on our space. And so, crazy that we've been in our space at Uncommons now just over 2 years. But we love it. We love the space. Again, I think a lot of it is the team. I think you could put us anywhere and we would have a good time. But I mean, the location for us is definitely huge. Being right on the freeway, especially, brokers come and go all day and you have to show property all over the valley. Yeah. So it is very helpful to have, quick access to the freeway. And then the amenities at Uncommons have been really great. And now Durango Station across the street. So, additional amenities. And the apartments, but, and they have events all the time. But we love it. And I think for us, again, like, with the brokers, I think being probably Southwest, that you could get on the 15 if you need to go to Apex or North Las Vegas, and we have about 100 employees at our office here in Vegas, and so we have employees that live, really far south,
Everywhere.
like 95 in College. And then we have some in, Providence. So, right. I think it's a pretty good middle ground. I don't think anyone I don't think anyone's really more than 25 minutes from the office, no matter where they live or where they have to go tour. So I think it's nice. But yeah, we really love it.
My office is right across the freeway.
Yeah. Yep.
It's funny. All the brokerages are over there now because of the proximity. I mean, you can get to the airport industrial market or North Las Vegas. I want to talk real quick. We're going to kind of I don't want to call it a rapid fire, but just kind of a couple quick topics as we kind of wrap up here. What have you seen in brokerage as far as like technology changing? Everyone's talking about AI, but have you guys implemented any new like cutting edge stuff that wasn't a thing three years ago?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have some CBRE proprietary like AI features, and I think we'll see it obviously in marketing. I mean, brokers like you starting podcasts, I think we'll see it. Drone photos now seem to be like a minimum. Right. Whereas like before, I feel like, and I say before, like 4 or 5 years ago, it was like maybe this project had a drone video. Now it's like you have to have a drone video. So, I think obviously social media is continuing to push the envelope and grow our sphere of influence and our networks, leveraging, new technologies. I know I've heard, I've done some in some of the conferences and stuff when they have the breakout sessions about marketing, I guess. Like in marketing now with AI, like you could take a photo of a building and like, take those clouds out and it will just do it at the flick of a button. So, so I think in marketing, we're going to see new ways to leverage it. Obviously, I hope that it doesn't become like cookie cutter templates where everyone's brochures sound the same because everyone's text is now the same. But, I think there's definitely ways to create efficiencies with technology and AI. And I think commercial versus residential, I feel like we're a little behind. Like I do see my friends in residential real estate doing a lot more with technology and AI than we are in commercial. But yeah, I think I think we have to learn to leverage it at some capacity, but I think we'll probably be more on like still the slower adoption side. But I think it is the way of the future. And I think the good news about it is I think there are ways to create efficiencies in our business with it. And we'll see.
Our marketing NAI just implemented this thing where on our back end, when like our properties get uploaded to our company website and we upload photos, there's a button you can click and it'll actually input information, bullet points, and a description. It's still it's in like the new phases of it, but it's pretty crazy how well that does. Continuing on like the trends and data, how do you stay on top of everything going on in the market? Because like me as a broker, I'm always interested in what's going on with comps and in the business, but you're managing an office and trying to help your teams win deals. Is there like publications you read regularly or listen to the radio? Like how do you stay up to date on everything?
I do listen to some podcasts. Like I said, I do like the Weekly Take. I like Trepwire, and different. I listen to a lot of like, vulnerability ones or leadership podcasts too. But I think like information overload, I think for sure can happen today. But that's why also I feel like even if I'm not necessarily reading something or listening to something, via my involvement in all of the other industry associations, you hear a lot just by being at a board meeting and hearing two developers talk about a recent issue, or somebody talk about, hey, we have a meeting with the county today, and because you're a part of NAIOP, you can come. So I think a lot of it is kind of like osmosis of just putting myself out there in situations where I'm hearing things that are going on.
Learning by involvement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, definitely should be reading when you can, but I think I'm always feel like I'm trying to stay in the know and current, right? Like being the right place, the right time to hear something that isn't published yet, or,
I had Doug Roberts on the podcast and I asked him that question, and he said he goes on LinkedIn because he wants to see what brokers have sold things for and what things are being the asking prices of things, and also broker events. He says, because you guys have the first, impression of what potential buyers or tenants are saying. He goes, that's like his 90% of his kind of input, which I thought was interesting. What is something you wish you would have known when you started your career that you know now that you wish you would have known when you first started?
I think you just get better over time. So I don't know if there's anything I wish I would have known per se. I've learned a lot, obviously, and I'm still learning, right? I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm a work in progress like everybody else. But actually, I'll couch that to say something I've gotten better at for sure is, not everything needs a response or a reaction. No response is a response. And yeah, so I would say that's something I have learned and wish I probably would have learned sooner. But yeah, not every response needs a reaction, or not everything needs a response. So I sometimes do coach, like, being proactive versus reactive is okay. I think sometimes, especially today and post-COVID, like sense of urgency all the time, right? Like we're always on, phone's always on, emails are always coming in, social media is always, yes.
Apple Watch.
And it's like, okay, well, hold on. Like we don't need to respond right away. Let that sit for an hour and let's think about really how to respond to that. So, yeah, I think sometimes filtering out the noise, or it's okay sometimes not, I mean, you don't want to not respond, but like sometimes to settle down the lack of, or the sense of urgency is okay. Sometimes like let things, like I said, like my big thing is like de-escalating people before a situation gets bad. So sometimes rapid reactions, I feel like, cause escalation. So it's like, well, hold on, let's when you respond that you're not so heated about it, or let's wait and think about that. And then your response is probably different.
So maybe sleep on that nasty email you're about to send. My old broker, I used to be at the old SVN, and my broker, Robert, like we had a pretty competitive office, and it was in the downturn. So we're all fighting for, foreclosures and stuff. And he always said that. He's like, if you're going to write a nasty email, write it.
Send it to yourself.
In a Word document, and look at it in the morning. And if you still want to send it, go ahead. Yeah. But
I've sent a lot of emails to myself that didn't go any further. But
that's really, no, that's just.
But don't send it by accident to the person.
That's why he said put it in a Word document. And because it's habit to just click send. I've done that. Oh my God, I've done that. But that's really, I really like that. Not everything warrants a response, because I'm that way. I'll get texts, and now on social media, people DM you on all the platforms,
yes.
And email. Oh, I hate email. I like it, but you just in the
it's
morning.
The volume. Constant. It's a high. Yeah, you said constant and high volume.
Yeah. So take a breath when you get riled up about something. That's a great piece of advice. What about a book? What is a book that you would recommend anyone in our industry should read?
I do love books, and I have actually a pretty good list that I can send you to. But I would say, Brene Brown obviously has great books about empathy and vulnerability. A good one that I really like, and I actually go back to it quite often, is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He's like a former FBI negotiator.
I listened to his masterclass.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Was it good? I'm sure.
It's incredible.
Okay. I have to do that. So I don't know if you've read that book, but because I feel like in our business, everything's a negotiation, the art of negotiation, everything's a negotiation. It's like, well, he, his whole book is predicated on like, as a hostage negotiator, like I can't split the difference. I don't get to say, I'll take the upper body and you can keep the lower body. Like he's like, I can't split the difference in my line of work. Like the only success is getting the entire person back, right? And so he like basically teaches like techniques about how to like, there's like different voices, like the late night DJ voice, and and so they just like basically teaches you different ways to approach a situation versus looking at every negotiation like I'm going to split the difference, or you get this and I get that. So I don't know. I do revert, I feel like, back to that book a lot. Culture Code is a great one too.
Culture Code.
Yeah, the Culture Code. I have like,
the thing on empathy is a good idea, like, because it's all connected, because people in business, like, everyone goes through challenges. And especially during COVID, I had a lot of phone calls from people that were like, hey, Mike,
what do I do?
Yeah, I can't pay my rental bill or whatever. And like, I'm like, well, let's all have conversations. Like you said, open dialogue. And a lot of owners were very receptive to discounting rent and adding it on the end. I mean, I was really surprised how many people collaborated.
Workouts, right? It's cool.
It was really cool to see. So that empathy thing, I think it's very important to try to look at where people are coming from before you react.
Yeah, the EQ, I think, is very important when dealing with people. And I think commercial is not as emotional as residential. I did residential real estate when I first, like in college. But, it still is emotional. Like you said, especially like someone paying rent, if they're small business or not, like there's still an emotional tie. But yeah, Give and Take by Adam Grant's another good one. Again, like that whole, like the first time you call somebody is not because you want something. And Grit is a good one, or The Happiness Advantage, like, I don't know. Like I said, I look through the lens of like giving people the benefit of the doubt. And my happiness is mine. It's not like nobody owes me anything to make me happy, right? Like my happiness is my own to manage. It's nobody else's responsibility but my own. And so the happiness advantage is a good one, kind of just talking about like your perspective.
It's a great point. Cat Williams, in one of his stand-ups, he makes this joke about your self-esteem. He goes, it's your self-esteem. It's the steam of your mother effing self. It's the funniest. But it's true. I mean, you need to learn to kind of manage your own emotions. We've all gotten things. We've all let our emotions get the best of us. But I think it's like anything, you can train yourself to, like you said, don't be reactive to everything. Just chill out for a minute.
Yeah, my grandma is 87 and she's amazing and she's by far the biggest influence on my life. And she's always happy, but she never really had a lot, a lot. And she raised all her kids and did such a great job. But my grandma was always happy. Like you never knew if she had financial stress or any kind of stress, quite frankly, but she would always joke. And she's an incredible baker and cook and always homemade everything. But there's this joke because one time when I went to her house, several years ago, probably 10 now at this point, she is like I said, she bakes everything from scratch, and she always makes fun of me because I don't cook really at all. But she had these like Nestle, like the pull apart quick bake cookies in her fridge one day, and I said, Grandma, I can't even believe you would buy these. Like I've never seen her not make her own cookies from scratch. And she said, oh honey, those are just for emergency, like that's emergency cookies. And I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, you never know when you're gonna need a cookie in an emergency, and those are my emergency cookies. And so we have this running joke since then, like whenever I'm like having a bad day or something, that like, is this an emergency cookie situation? So like sometimes like to that point, like the perspective, right? Like she's just honestly the most genuine and happy person in the world. And she didn't have a lot and doesn't have a lot, but her happiness and her wealth is just in her family. And she's like, have a great life. And so it's like the joke we say is like when I call about something, if I'm upset, it's like, is this emergency cookie situation? So, hopefully,
into a good mood.
Exactly. So if you need emergency cookie situation, that's how there's always emergency cookies available.
It's funny. I think our grandparents had obviously very different childhoods. I mean, wartime and that kind of thing. But my grandmother always said that too. Something similar. She said it's always an adventure. I was driving to go visit her one time, and I got not one but two flat tires on the not that 200-mile drive, which was new. And she goes, yeah, but like, what was the adventure? Like, what did you learn or something like that? And I was like,
she's always happy. Her perspective is so good.
And I realized like, well, I learned how to change a tire on a bank. So I had to get like, it was
you're still here though, is what my grandma would say, right?
A guy with a truck pulled up behind me because I had two flat tires. I left it on the jack, put the tires up. The guy with the truck, we had a great little visit, got the tires patched. He drove me back, just being a nice guy. And I was like, that was that taught me to maybe keep an eye out for people on the side of the road that might need help or something like that.
Right. But you're probably in the moment, like very jarred. Right. Yeah. And so, perspective. I think perspective is everything. Right. And just keeping level head and right. Like finding the good. And like you said, I agree. Life's an adventure. It's messy, but it's amazing, and it's chaotic, but it's fun. And laugh a lot, love a lot, live a lot. I don't know. Like we never know when tomorrow. So I was like, that's why I feel like I try to cram everything in. As my husband said, can you not do everything? And I'm like, no, because we never know, and that's it, and I don't want to have any regrets. Like you say, what was something you done different? Like I really don't have any regrets when I look back, and like I've done a lot because I've put myself out there a lot. And like what's the worst that could happen?
Take risks.
What's the best that can happen? I got this job. I met this person. So I don't know. I just feel like the best is, now, not yet to come. Like we control our own destiny and our own lives, and it's what you make of it, good or bad.
So that was a very positive note. I'm going to, this is the last thing I want to ask you about. We're like 50 days from the election. We're a battleground state. Every corner has campaign signs on it, billboards and radio ads. I can't wait till it's over. I mean, obviously, I know who I want to win for local politics and that, but just having it in the rearview mirror is nice because it's just so bombarding. How do you think our current situation with the election has affected commercial real estate? Are you seeing people like sit and wait kind of stuff, or has your office like seen a little bit of a
I think
pause?
Everybody says that. Everybody says that, but I guess how real is that, right? And I think when you asked me that yesterday, I actually was just doing like a quick Google search to see if I missed anything. But then I realized that CB just put something out a couple weeks ago about this. And Have we all heard that in the business? Absolutely. But we've also heard a lot of other excuses or things too. The reality is if somebody can wait, they're going to wait regardless of what the situation is right now. But I don't know, like, is there real evidence to support that people wait predicated around an election? It looks like, according to the research that CB did, our team there, like, no, that the biggest indicator of change in deal velocity or volume was basically the great financial recession and the Fed rate hikes in 2022. So I think it's hard to say, and from what I saw based on our research, like, there is no real evidence around it. And then again, like, more of the economic factors of interest rates, cost of capital, cost of money, cost of construction, really have more of an impact than an election. But I know we hear it too from clients, and my brokers will tell me that. But I don't know, like, is it really true, or is it what people are saying? I don't.
Yeah, it's just such a. The elections are always so in your face, especially in Nevada, because we're a battleground state.
Yeah.
Meaning that whoever is going to be president.
Look, there could be challenges either way, but there's also opportunity either way. So we have to be prepared for anything and looking kind of more at potential policies that could impact our business, and then come up with a strategy around it, right?
This, like, time of turmoil or being slow, this is like the number one time to prospect. You have to get out, like, you have to get out in front of your clients or potential clients, share information, be like, hey, I'm still here doing deals. Like, if this is what you're looking for, like, this is, what a building costs right now, when who knows what's going to happen. But I found that, like, in those, like, slower times or chaotic times when I'm constantly in front of people, when it's time to do a deal, they really remember that. I had a client tell me that one time during the recession. He called me like 2019. He's like, I remember you would call me when things were really bad, and I figured if you could make it through that, you kind of knew what you were doing. And I was like,
yeah,
I appreciate that compliment.
I had a client once tell me, like, I had called several times, just cold calling, and they called me back at like 5:45 p.m. and I answered. I was still at the office, and this had to be like 2018 maybe. Or no, actually maybe it had to be before that. So anyways, and he said, I wasn't going to call you back until the fourth time you called me, and I purposely called you after 5 to see if you'd answer. Now you can have my business. And so it's just funny, to your point though, like, right, sometimes it's a test of, like, how many times will you let somebody call you. And when I started, I mean, today it's so different because information's available everywhere, like you said. And when I started in 2007, I'm like, I'm dating myself here, but now it's like you said, you could post right now when we leave here a deal transaction. But my whole thing, like I said, I didn't have the biggest resume or the most experience. So I would try to call people as soon as I heard about a deal to be the first to say, hey, your neighbor just sold their building for, whatever amount of money, whatever price per square foot. And so that was like how I was like the one area I knew, like, I didn't have to be my transaction, but if I was the first to call them with the recent transaction, that they would associate information with me and think to call me. Right now it's a little bit harder to do that because information's so readily available everywhere. But that was kind of my strategy when I started, was like, I just had to be the first to tell them about a transaction or a comp. So like you said, I mean, it's being consistent in what you do, no matter what the deal velocity is around you or the market conditions, that just stay consistent in your business and your philosophies and your values.
What you just said is so important. Like, it doesn't need to be your deal. You're just sharing information.
I'm not like saying it's my deal, but like, right, just this building closed. It wasn't mine.
You said that. You were clear about that. No, it's just getting out in front of it. But it's funny, even I'm really involved in social media. I mean, obviously the podcast and YouTube, and 99% of my business is still the good old fashioned cold calling and meeting people in person. Because I've seen a trend where some people want to get away from all the social media. They've deleted their accounts. They're not on it. And also a lot of the ownership groups, just kind of the cycle we're here, we have a lot of baby boomers who, like, own the real estate or own the businesses. They're not on all this stuff. They don't want to be on it. So, like, they want physical mail. They want you to come say hi. Yeah. They want a nice bound package that is shiny that they can look at when they get home.
Do you know how many people say, like, thank you for calling?
Yeah.
I don't, like... I'm getting away from sitting in front of my computer and, being chained to Outlook all day. But yeah, I mean, we're hearing that a lot. Like, thank you for calling. It's change of pace from the text messages and social media and emails and the barrage of information all the time. So I agree with that.
So every client is different. I have one client, he's in his 90s. I realized that he works with me because he owns a handful of buildings in multiple states, but he works with me because I started texting with him. He can't hear. And I've got a pretty loud voice. So I realized when I was with him in person, I had to speak up and he could hear me and he was responsive and immediately. And then I started texting him and I'm like, this guy's 90, I think he's 95 and he text messages. He's still sharp as a tack. He just can't hear.
Yeah.
And World War II vet and all this stuff. It's just, so it's really interesting. So try different methods when you're.
Well, right.
when
Knowing, you know, again,
Know your audience.
Yeah. Know your audience and know who you're working with. But yeah. And I think, like you said, I've seen a lot of your, content, I guess is the right word I'm learning, on social media. But I personally like the videos that you do where you're like, this is what power looks like, or this is, and it seems like maybe elementary to some, but sometimes I do think also there's this concept. And again, I think I may be a little bit more hyper aware because I work with so many of the students at UNLV, but we have this vernacular or jargon in the business. And do you know how many times someone will say to me, like, what does that mean? You know, What was that? What did that mean? I still remember early in my career too, like I worked on a project with somebody and somebody in the room kept saying corn shell. And at one point somebody else in the room goes, corn shell? Like, you know, it's like, but again, sometimes I think innocently assume that words or situations that we are accustomed to or used to, it's like not everybody knows what that is or where to look for the power to, you know, panel and try to determine how much power is in a space. So I know those videos are good, by the way.
Thank you. I have a very good team that's helped me, including the people who helped me with this podcast. But you realize people don't, you know, they don't know what they don't know. I'm touring with a pretty big, I'm representing a casino right now in their warehouse search. And one of the things that was really important to them, we're looking at this big warehouse, expensive move. We're talking about things like the office build out and cost of HVAC and that. Yeah. And the gentleman who was like the decision maker was like, well, what about the electrical outlets? And I'm like, well, those aren't that expensive to put in. But I realized like, oh, we're in a new build and there is none of that. And that he realized like they need that. So that's important to them. So it's really, it's important to realize like who you're communicating with and what's important to them. I mean, maybe they moved into a warehouse and they didn't have that and it cost a giant problem.
Right.
So yeah, that stuff's important to kind of all of the above method until you figure out what works for that person.
Right. Again, like the one size doesn't fit all, you know, and like, it's like, you know, doing the diagnostic on your clients, to your point, like what does matter to them, power to them, but it may not matter to somebody else who has, you know, moved into several warehouses and they have kind of a team that outfits it exactly to their specifications. So, yeah, I just think our business, whether it's management or clients, like it's not a one size fits all, and doing diagnostic and research up front when you're working with people on your team and your clients really helps, I think, hopefully, you know, avoid any really bad mishaps.
I write really, really detailed emails when there's 50 people CC'd and I might have only met 2. I've started to learn that the people that are in those like emails weren't part of all the meetings. So I really write long descriptions out. And even somebody on my team was like, do you think people read those? And I'm like, the one who might read it, they
the one who
appreciate
needs
that.
to read it. Yeah.
And what terms mean, like what maybe a side conversation. And then also I'm like, but if they don't want to read it, they'll just call me. And that's me. When I get a long email, I'm like, I'm not reading this. I'm calling somebody to talk about this.
We joke in our office because, like, you know, to get people to read the content, like, do I make it like look good and put graphics, or do I just stick to the content or bullets? And I'm like, if someone's going to read it, they're going to read it. And if not, they're going to come up and ask me 10 times about the email that I sent, you know, last week with the content that they're asking about. But it's like, here's the answer.
And that's why we have follow-up phone calls. I mean, I follow up with, if I have a call, I follow up with an email. If I have an email I send, I follow up with a call to say, hey, did that make sense? Or do you have any questions? Cassie, thank you so much for being here. This
You're
has
welcome.
been
Thank you for
a
having
wealth
me.
of knowledge. I was going to say the main thing that I took away from this is not everything warrants a response. And I can't tell you how, like, I needed to hear that, because there's a situation I'm in right now where I want to drive over to someone's office and share some kind words with them. But
see, I bet if you knew them outside of that situation, you might feel differently about it.
You're 100% right. But I know somebody on their team, and ironically, they called me and they were like, hey, this is how this like happened. I'm like, I know. It's just like, it's not going my way. So I'm obviously not happy about it. But yeah, you win some, you lose some. It's fine. It's a learning experience.
It sounds like you need some emergency cookies, and then you'll feel better.
That's right. It's an adventure. That's good. I love cookies. But no, we could go 2 hours on this. I really appreciate you coming in and taking the time. there were some really good topics covered, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
And
too.
yeah, thanks again for coming out.
Thank you.